Hello, this is Joe from Nerd in Korea. We are looking at our most budget deck ever. This is actually under $33, so this is Farideh, Devil's Chosen, and the deck I'm calling Keep Rolling. So whenever you roll one or more dice, Farideh, Devil's Chosen gains Flying and Menace until ends of turn. Again, this is called Dark One's Own Luck, so she gets Flying and Menace. Two forms of evasion, really good together. If any of those results are 10 or higher, draw a card. There's plenty of things where you're rolling a d20, and one thing I want to remind you, if you're rolling a 20-sided dice, your chance of rolling a 10 or higher is actually 55%, not 50%. A lot of people think 10, half of 20, 50%. 11 to 20 would be 50%. 10 to 20 is actually 55%. Anyway, she is 2 and Izzet, a blue and a red, for 21 cents. Okay, the deck price right now is $32.75. If you want to get this deck, I'd say get it quickly. These decks, I make them, and I make them at the budget, and then they shoot up very quickly. I think my first deck that I made about, 4 weeks ago, after 2 weeks, it went up almost 10 bucks. So yeah, these don't stay down. Anyway, design objective, take maximum advantage of the roll mechanic and Izzet control, right? Izzet is a very strong color combination, right? Red and blue. And getting the most out of it is very essential anytime you have an Izzet commander. Well, I guess getting maximum advantage of it out of any color is important for the color identity, but we want to focus on the control part is my point. I determined this using the TCG player market price. Again, there are higher prices on if you use other things. Moxfield lets you choose from 3 different options. Make sure TCG player, not a sponsor. Anyway, you can actually check this link in the description if you want to. So yeah, that should be fun or interesting and maybe not fun. Part 1, Farideh, Devil's Chosen, about the commander. So again, she's an Izzet commander, heavily focused on the roll mechanic. One nice thing about the roll mechanic is that people don't like it, so it's cheap. I think people want consistency in their cards, so they don't like the roll mechanic, which I get, but at the same time, most of the roll mechanic, it gives you bonuses. It's not that the low roll gives you something really bad, it's that you get extra for the higher rolls. So yeah, it really is a lot better than it gets credit for, I think. And easily gains 2 forms of evasion, allowing for easy win con, right? Commander damage is definitely the number 1 win con with her. So yeah, that is what we want to look at most of all. Okay, part 1, Farideh, Devil's Chosen, about the commander. Alright, so what is this commander all about? Farideh, Devil's Chosen, once again, Izzet commander, heavily focused on the roll mechanic. So the roll mechanic is a great one to use because people don't like it. Which sounds weird, but people want consistency in their cards, I think. And yeah, the idea of rolling to get an effect is kind of doubling down on randomness, so I get it, but at the same time, most of these cards actually give you something better. It's not that they do something bad if you roll low, it's that they do something better if you roll high, right? So it's kind of more advantage than disadvantage, at least most of the time. Easily gains 2 forms of evasion. Again, she gets Flying and Menace every time you roll. And if you roll 10 or higher, you draw a card. So she's got a card draw on her too. Kind of a sick combination if you think about it. Anywho, yeah, 21 cents, 4 mana to cast for a 3/3. High synergy cards, right? First of all, Iron Mastiff. It lets you, one major thing that lets you do is every time it attacks, you roll. So it does give you your rolls every turn, and it's rolling a d20. So again, 55% chance that you're rolling, higher than 10 or 10 or higher, which lets you draw a card. The 1 to 9 actually does damage you, so this is one of the rare cards where the low roll does actually hurt you, but the main thing you want to do is just make sure you've got like one of your roll bonuses on there. Like there's a lot of cards in this deck, I think 5, that let you roll 2 instead of just 1. And if there's 2 of them on the battlefield, you roll 3 instead of 1, etc. So yeah, you can very quickly get to the point where it's not unreasonable to expect that you're going to be rolling some crits at least, right? You're getting some 20s. So yeah, that is, especially with a monitor lets you pay 1 mana to re-roll any dice you want. So again, even if you attack with him and you roll a 10, an 8, and a 7, you can keep the 10 and then pay 1 to re-roll the other 2, trying to get the higher one. So you're kind of like always hedging. You can do a lot of that anyway. All right. Fate Wild Trickster. Okay, this I think is deceptively good. Whenever you roll 1 or more dice, you create a 1/1 blue fairy dragon creature token with flying. Flying tokens are just amazing. Obviously blocking, but also just evasion. Having the evasion is great. And yeah, it's every time you roll, right? So if you roll 3 different times in a turn, which is very possible with this deck, you're going to be making 3 of those fairy dragons. You can very easily make a swarm of them very quickly, I think. Anywho, Will, Blade of the Frontiers. This is almost like a type of card we have in the deck, but yeah, the main thing he does is he lets you roll an extra die and then just ignore the lowest roll, which is amazing. And also he every time you roll, he gets a +1/+1 counter. Remember, you're very likely going to be rolling more than once per turn, so he can build these up very, very fast. All right, keeping him on the battlefield long enough for him to build up a fair amount of these, and then giving him some evasion. You can make him unblockable and just send him out and like possibly finish a player right there, right? Anywho, finally we have Izzet Paran. I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Paran, but anyway. Synergizes with card draw. We have a lot of card draw in this deck because she does have card draw on her. So yeah, we want to take full advantage of that. And yeah, gives you benefits when opponents cast instants or sorceries. Every time your opponents cast an instant or a sorcery, you get to draw a card. And when you draw a card, it can do 1 damage to any target. So them casting an instant or sorcery might let you kill one of their creatures. Just a very, very nice combination right there. Part 2, Deck Objectives. This is how to win, basically. Alright, so this is a little bit more complicated than I usually like to make these, but yeah. It is a budget one, or a super budget one, and yeah, I think Izzet is a little more complex than some other, Gruul. You go in and you fight, and then the game's over, right? Izzet is all about like control and like being sneaky, so it's a little more complicated, but yeah. Get rolls maximized, right? Get your cards down that let you roll extra dice or re-roll dice, or choose which die counts and which doesn't. But anyway, get your card draw engine set. So you're going to have lots of cards that let you draw more and more and more cards. There's lots of ways to make that very, very even more valuable than card draw usually is in this deck. Prepare your control. Okay, so you got to be ready to use control when it comes up, because this has tons of counters, tons of ways to mess with other people's games. By mid-game, hopefully you should be able to be like shutting down other people's plans. You can see their pieces coming out, and you're like, no, out. So it's a lot of denial, very heavy on the blue effects that people always complain about on the internet, but okay. Get to a win con. Finally, you want your win con, right? And we've got, well, at least 3 in here, possibly more. So get rolls maximized. kind of look at 3 different things here: role bonuses, role synergies, and role availability. Okay, so first of all, role bonuses. We have Monitor, which I mentioned already. This lets you pay 1 mana to re-roll any dice you want. Again, if you're rolling multiple dice, you can choose which ones to roll and which not to re-roll. That's you can get again, with Iron Mastiff, if you roll a 10 and 2 lower ones, you can just re-roll the lower ones. And hey, golden. Anyway, Barbarian class, this is very nice because it's an enchantment, not a creature, right? Again, if you'd roll 1 or more dice, instead roll that many plus 1, ignore the lowest roll. And then this can also give you bonuses for rolling. Whenever you roll 1 or more dice, target creature you control gains +2 and menace until end of turn. Remember, you can stack these up also, right? The menace doesn't stack. Menace is menace even if they have it 5 times. The +2, every time you roll, give it +2, +2, +2, +2. This is very useful also with your, if you're going for commander damage win con. This can do a lot of work for that. And yeah, giving all your creatures haste doesn't hurt either, but anyway. Bamboozling Beeble. The next time a player would roll 1 or more dice, instead they roll that many +1 and you choose one of those rolls to ignore. So again, maybe you want a specific result, and if it's not the highest result, this lets you do that a lot better. There are ones, I think, especially like Treasure Chest, you might want the 2 to 9 option. So if you're rolling 2 dice, hopefully you get it on 1, and then you ignore the higher one, and actually go for the lower one on that one. Anyway, there are a lot more. I had a very hard time choosing which roll bonuses to put on here. There's so many in there. It's crazy. Again, Will isn't on this list, but anywho. Roll synergies. Once again, Feywild Trickster, getting all of those token creatures with flying out. Just awesome. Priority Boarding is an enchantment once again. And whenever you roll a die, you may reveal the top card of your library. Do this only once each turn. So there's kind of a limitation there, but it's an extra card available, right? Whenever you reveal a card this way with mana value less than the result, you may exile it. If you do, you may play it this turn. Again, it doesn't have to have, like if you roll a die, whatever the result is, you look at the card, and if that card has a lower mana value, you can play it that turn. So it's actually quite good because a lot of times you're rolling like d20s. The odds of getting lower than whatever it is, I think the mana is mostly like 2 and 3 are centered around that area. So you're gonna, very unlikely that you roll under 3, right? Netherese Puzzle Ward. The main one we want to look at the beginning of your turn upkeep, roll a d4, so it is automatically rolling, which is great. Scry X, where X is the result, okay? So you're getting the roll at the beginning of your turn. Already, your commander has flying and menace right from the out of the gate kind of thing. And whenever you roll the highest natural result on a die, draw a card. More card draw, right? Especially with the d4, 25% chance of rolling a 4, 25% chance of also getting not only scry but card draw. So scry and card draw together, very nice combination. Especially if you're scry 4, draw 1, that's a spell. That's just a spell, you know? That's actually a pretty good spell. Alright, roll availability. That's the next thing we need to look at. Strength Testing Hammer. Whenever a equipped creature attacks, put it on your commander and she's just automatically going to roll and give herself flying and menace at the beginning of combat. When you're declaring attackers, she's going to automatically do that. Roll a 6-sided die. That creature gets +X+0 until end of turn, where X is the result. Then, if it has the greatest power or tied for the greatest power among creatures on the battlefield, draw a card. We've got a whole bunch of effects that are going to let you boost up your the power of your commander. Your commander being the most powerful thing on the or having the highest attack power on the battlefield is very likely. This can just be another source of card draw as well. So kind of two birds with one stone there. And then for 4 mana, you can roll and tap Wand of Wonder, right? Roll a d20. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card, and then shuffle the rest in the library. You may cast up to X target instant and or sorcery spells from among the cards exiled in this way without paying it for their costs. 4 mana for 1 to 3 instants or sorceries you get to steal from opponents. This card's nuts. I don't understand why this is a budget card. This is another one where it's like, I think people just hate rolling, but it's like, if you roll 1 to 9, you only get 1. 1 is still probably worth 4 mana, right? Yeah, and you choose which one as well. So if one of them is not worth 4 mana, choose a different one. There you go. Or you could choose, if you roll 20, you get all 3. Oh, crazy. And Arcane Investigator, once again, I think we talked about him already. For a 1 to 9, you can draw a card. And 10 to 20, again, 55% chance 10 to 20. You look at the top 3 cards, take 1, and then put the other 2 at the bottom of your library. So this is basically scry 3, draw 1. It does not have those keywords though, so it won't proc anything that's draw a card or scry. It won't do that, but still, for 6 mana, that's pricey, but you want to make sure you have your rolls. Also, you can hold this up and then use it on someone else's turn so you have mana and you're not just wasting the mana. We've got lots of instants that you can use, a lot of counters. Make sure you're not just throwing your mana completely away, right? You're getting something for it. Get card draw engine, right? Your card draw engine is very important and it has a whole bunch of win cons kind of attached to it. So anyway, not a whole bunch, but anyway. No hand limit. The first thing you want to do is no hand limit, card draw synergy, and then card draw availability, okay? Maybe not in that order, but these are all things to keep in mind. No hand limit. We actually have multiple things. There's more no hand limit cards in here, but anyway, wizard class, just right off the bat gives you no hand limit. The level 3 is kind of what really is more important later, but anyway. Reliquary Tower, no maximum hand size on a land. That's great because it's the safest place to put it, right? Lands are the things that usually don't get messed with, so if you want an ability, put it on a land. Nissa of Traken. This does give you no hand size, and you can also use it for card draw if you have artifacts to sacrifice. This can make treasures. I don't know if you want to sacrifice treasures for card draw. And tap down as well, right? No. Oh, yeah, card draw. And tap X creatures, right? So if you sacrifice, say, 4 treasures, you draw 4 cards, and you tap down for creatures your opponents control. Again, you've got a lot of the flying evasion, so if they have more than 4 flyers, don't attack them. If they have 4 or less, then hey, you're just tapping them down and you can just kind of add to your evasion sneakily. Card draw synergy. Once again, wizard class. Alright, the level 3 is what's important here. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 on target creature you control. You got so much card draw, right? You draw at the beginning of your turn, your commander probably lets you draw, and then if you've got that like hammer, you'll probably be drawing 3 just off of those, right? That's a really amazing start. And that can be just +3/+3. You're putting on whatever you want. Probably your commander for the commander damage, but yeah. Anywho, Niv Mizzet, the Fire Mind. Whenever you draw a card, it deals 1 damage to any target. You can also tap him to draw a card. So he'll do damage whenever you draw a card to any target you want, which is great, both against players and pesky creatures, right? You can just shut them down, and then We've got Niv Mizzet Perrin again. Basically the same ability. Every time you draw a card, you're doing 1 damage to any target, and it gives you card draw as well. So that is just great. Card draw availability. We do have Niv Mizzet Perrin again, because he does have that. Every time your opponent casts an instant or sorcery, you're getting a card. I think there's also an element of disincentive. Not really strong disincentive, but enough to make them go, should I do that? Again, you're not going to just draw a card. You're drawing a card and putting the +1/+1 counter on, and then doing something else, and then doing something else. Giving you a card draw is not like giving everyone else a card draw. So that's why I say the disincentive might actually factor into the decision making, at least make it harder. But again, we have Arcane Investigator. That gives you, on a 1 to 9, it's card draw. Remember, the 10 to 20 is not card draw. That's kind of what I want to point out about him, is that you do put a card into your hand. It is not drawing though. It does not use the word draw, so that would not activate any draw effects. Finally, Robe with Archmagi. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw that many cards. That's where it gets really sick, because like Robe with the Archmagi and Niv Mizzet Perrin together basically equal double strike, right? Actually, you could have double strike and this, so it's better than double strike, right? You get double strike in commander, do commander damage to someone, and then they're going to do this can do 22 damage when you draw 22 cards as well. Whew! Just sick. One last thing to point out is that warlocks with Robe of the Archmagi, equipping it to a warlock, like your commander, only costs 1 mana. It's only 1 mana to equip for a warlock, so yeah. Prepare your control. So control synergy and control cards is what we're looking at here. Control synergy, Goblin Electromancer, which is a go-to I think in a lot of Izzet decks. Instant on sorcery spells cost you 1 less to cast. There are plenty of spells in this deck where you're going to be doing for basically like 1 mana, 1 mana, 1 mana. Once you have this on the board, and this becomes very, very important later. Gutter Snipe. Every time you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. Very good as well, right? You're doing a lot of spell slinging, you might as well maximize that. Stern Kiln Artist. This also lets you make a treasure, not only when you cast, but when you copy. We've got plenty of things that let you kind of steal and copy spells. So that turns it into like stealing a spell, copying it, and making treasure on top of that. That gets ridiculous. But anyway. Are some of our standout control cards. Again, this deck has so many. I cannot go over all of them. But yeah. I like this because it's a modal spell. Again, for 1 and 2 blue, you can counter target spell. Hopefully you got your cost reduction Electromancer there. Excuse me. And then yeah, you can draw cards, 2 cards, and discard 2 cards. And yeah, that it will be very important if you have all of your card draw synergy set up. That can be damage, that can be +1/+1 counters, that can be a whole bunch of big advantages for you that the other players are not going to be happy to see. Also, if you have, what is it called? Triskadillo file, I think? If you've got 11 cards in hand and you play this, you would still have 11. What am I talking about? Never mind. Okay. Gale's Redirection. Exile target spell, roll a d20, and then add that spell's mana value. So this is another roll card. It's a counter. It's a little expensive at 5, but yeah. You are going to roll your d20, and however much that spell costs, you're adding the CMC to your roll. So getting a higher roll with a higher cost spell, not that difficult, right? And so 1 to 14, you may cast the exiled card for as long as it remains exiled. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. Again, you can steal someone else's thing, exile it, and then you get to use it later. You may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost as long as it remains exiled. 15 or higher, you get to cast their spell for free. Once again, you're adding to the roll. You're probably rolling more than one die, first of all, and then you're adding to the roll, the highest roll, whatever the TMC of the spell is. So if you've got something like a board wipe or something, that'll be like 4 to 6 usually. If you're trying to only get 15, rolling 2 die and adding 4 is not that big a challenge. Anywho. Reinterpret. Counter target spell. You may cast a spell from your with equal or lesser mana value from your hand without paying its mana cost. Again, this will let you cast any spell. This is not limited to only instants or something. If it's on someone else's turn, it allows you to cast a creature, allows you to cast whatever you want to be able to set up a bit. Alright, and again, there are plenty of 2 and 3 mana spells, so you can probably get something onto the battlefield that is very useful while countering someone else's spell. It's a real punch in the teeth. Anyway, there are many, many more. These kind of are ones that stand out to me. Get to a win con. This has different win cons for different strategies in the deck, okay? I tried to include different win cons that will work with the different strategies we have here. So win con 1, again, commander damage is our first main strategy. Blackblade Reforged, no surprise there. Equip creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control, and equip legendary creature for 3. Right? So your commander for 3 mana is probably going to get a fairly nice bump. Surge to Victory. Exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. Creatures you control, all creatures. So if you've got a bunch of tokens, they all get this bonus, right? Get +X+0 until end of turn, where X is that card's mana value. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player this turn, copy the exiled card. You may cast that copy without paying its mana cost. So again, you're exiling a card from your graveyard, which may not sound great, but then any creatures that deal damage, you cast it, and you can cast it again, cast it again, cast it again. Whenever they deal damage, especially with evasion, like your token flyers are going to have, probably a fair amount of them are getting through and dealing some good damage, and then you're copying a whole bunch of spells, right? You're making a whole bunch of copies as well. Finally, Critical Hit. This is a major one in the deck. It gives double strike until end of turn, and whenever you roll a natural 20, return it from your graveyard to your hand. You're rolling a lot of d20s, and you can roll, or 20-sided dice, maybe I should say, and you can roll multiple per roll. You'll probably be able to roll multiple. Big circle I made there, but anyway. So yeah, very likely in a game, you're going to roll 20 more than once, right? If you cast this, you don't have to sweat too much. You're probably getting it back at some point. That's maybe the main takeaway from that. Win con number 2, card draw to death. Okay, this is a little bit risky, and I'll go into why. So the first piece here is Curiosity. So whenever an enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. Again, deals damage, not combat damage, deals damage. So with our first one here, you can tap him to draw a card, and when you draw a card, he'll deal 1 damage to any target. And when he deals 1 damage to any target, you draw a card, which means that, yeah, he deals 1 damage to any target, and then you draw a card, 1 damage, draw a card. Anyway, this just goes on until you decide to stop. Really? Yeah. And this is a little risky. Niv-Mizzet Perun. Whenever you draw a card, it deals 1 damage to any target. Yeah, so if you play this and you don't... If your opponents have more life than you have cards, then you might mill yourself out before... Or you probably will mill yourself out before you're able to actually get the kill, right? Or end the game. You'll end your own... You'll basically mill yourself to death. make sure not to do that, right? If you want to use this, make sure you have enough more cards in your deck than they have life. That's what's really important, right? This is a great finisher. If there's only like one left, you're probably going to have more cards in your library than one person has life, at least. So yeah. But be careful of the self-mill. Okay, win con number 3. This is a little bit more of a tricky one. You really only need one card, Triskaidekaphile. Again, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have exactly 13 cards in hand, you win the game. So you could just win the game outright, but the 13 cards is what's tricky. So first of all, you need no maximum hand size, which he has. So if he's on the battlefield, you got no maximum hand size, that's done. You need plenty of card draw, we've got that. Then you want to make sure you don't have 13 cards just sitting in hand, right? Someone's going to notice and probably just kill him, and then yeah, that's gone. So what you want to do is actually have more cards in hand and then use instants to go down to 13. Ideally you have like 15 or 16, right? And then you're going to cast 3 instants to go down to having 13 in hand. So Goblin Electromancer, you don't need him for this, but it's very helpful. Again, instants or sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast. So you can cast things like you come to a river or any other instant. There are plenty of 2 mana instants where there's not, you can get that rebate and it only costs you 1 mana. And yeah, even if you're starting with like 16 cards or something, if you've got 4 mana and Electromancer on the battlefield, you can go down to, 17. 4 mana to get down to 13 cards, right? It's really not that difficult, but more difficult than, say, some of the other ones, I think. This can be very sneaky. Maybe not everyone will like this one, but it is, I think it's a valid win con. Part 3, combos and tactics. Okay, so this is about getting the most value. Oh, please hit like and subscribe. It really does help a lot. If you have any comments or you have any requests for budget commanders to cover, please let me know. Mana Geyser. Okay, we're looking at our ramp first. Mana Geyser. Add a red for each tap mana your opponents control, or tap land your opponents control. With 3 on the, if you've still got 3 opponents, that's a lot, right? I also like this because it is one of those cards that just gets better and better as the game goes on. They get more and more lands down and tap them and cast more and more things, and then you're just going to be like, okay, now I get this huge pile of mana. It does cost 5. Pretty easy to have. If you have 3 opponents who have less than 5 tap lands, it's a really weird situation you're in. Anywho, Stormkiln Artist we talked about before. Casting or copying makes a treasure. Treasures are great, obviously, and treasure chest. The 2 to, if you roll a 2 to a 9, create 5 treasures. Okay. 2 to 9 is maybe one of the harder things to roll. Rolling low is harder than rolling higher. That's for sure. But we're going to talk about that too. So choose treasure, right? Being able to choose the treasure. What you really want is Bamboozling Beeble and Treasure Chest on the battlefield at the same time. Bamboozling Beeble is different from most of the other cards that do similar things. It does let you roll 1 extra, but then you get to choose which one you're actually going to use. Rather than just taking the highest one, you're choosing one, and with this, you can just choose the 2 to 9. Choose something that's 2 to 9, and there you go. You got your 5 treasures. I would not pass up the 20 either. Searching, basically tutoring out any card you want is pretty awesome, but yeah. If you don't roll a 20, I would probably want the 2 to 9. Worst case scenario, you gain 3 life, draw 3 cards. That ain't bad either. So I guess trapped is the worst case scenario. If you're rolling 2 though, you probably, I shouldn't say you won't roll double ones because I've done that plenty of times, but anyway, alright. Not likely. Auto damage. Alright, so I think a lot of people look at auto damage and say, oh, that won't kill them. No, probably not. That's not the point. Auto damage can help bring your opponent's life total down, making them better targets for attack. So the point is not to like win the game. It's not a win con, no. It's to drop them down a bit and make people go, oh, their life is lower. It's a great time to attack them. You don't really necessarily, and keep yourself competitive too, right? If you're losing life, it's good if they lose life as well. So this kind of has a double use. Anyway, Brazen Dwarf, whenever you roll one or more die, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Again, you can roll multiple die every turn. If this was only 1 damage to each opponent each turn, it would not be worth it. This is probably in 3 turns, rolling multiple times. I guess over 7 times later in the game. Very possible. Doing 7 damage to everyone, or all of your opponents, that's 21 damage, right? If you do get that, and possibly even higher, this is like cantrip kind of effect. Really? Or instant or sorcery kind of effect, I mean. And Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh. Whenever you cast a red spell, you can untap her, and you can tap her to deal 1 damage to target opponent, and then if she's dealt 3 or more damage this turn, again, tap her, deal 1 damage to an opponent, cast 1 red spell, untap, do it again, cast your second red spell, untap, do it again. That's 3. You only need 2 red spells to be able to tap her 3 times. And then she flips over and becomes a planeswalker. A Chandra, believe it or not. And then, yeah, her +1 is she deals 2 damage to target player. Her -2 is deals 2 damage to target creature. But her -7 is where it gets really ridiculous. She deals 6 damage to each opponent. And each player dealt damage this way gets an emblem at the beginning of your upkeep. This emblem deals 3 damage to you. So it deals, oh boy, 6 damage to all of your opponents, and then 3 damage at the start of every turn for them. So just in that first turn, that's 9 damage, right? 6 and then the 3 when they start, and then 3 every time after that. And emblems, no one can touch them. That's the really nice thing about emblems. You can't counterspell, right? Once the emblem's down, it's done. It's over. And yeah, that's just a whole bunch. But anyway, and when Fiery Inscription enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Some people don't like the ring tempts you mechanic, and I get that, but with this, it's very nice. It makes it so the first one, you choose a legendary creature, your commander, and it basically means it can't be blocked by things with greater power than it. So yeah, it's just always going to be able to like attack, and even anything that could block and kill your commander, it's going to have to like leave it alone. It's basically a third form of evasion you're putting on your commander if you play this, which is ridiculous, but anyway. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. Again, you got Gutter Snipe doing almost the same thing. You've got other effects doing almost the same thing. Piling up that auto damage can happen very quickly, that's for sure. Okay, readying your counters. This is very, very important in this deck. We have a whole pile of counters, but what it requires keeping mana open, and then if the mana's not used, of course at the end of the beginning of your next turn, you basically wasted that, right? So you're not using your resources effectively if you don't have something to sink that mana into. And that's what these cards do. We talked about Arcane Investigator already. So that 6 mana is steep, but if you're able to use it to secure your counter spells, then hey, that's actually pretty worth it. It also has double usefulness that I've already talked about, but yeah. You can really, with 6 open mana, people will probably just leave you alone as well. Even if they see Arcane Investigator, 6 open mana, they're not going to cast spells at you. They're not going to like attack you. They're going to be very cautious if there's that much mana open. So that is something where it kind of has even maybe a triple benefit. But anyway, Chaos Wand for 4 mana and tap, exile. Target opponent exiles cards from the top of the library until they exile a instant or sorcery card. You may cast the card without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Okay, and yeah. So this is something where their instances and sorceries, maybe they cost less than 4. Very possibly they cost more as well. Even if they cost less than 4, they're probably very good. They're probably very useful things that cost less than 4. So I look at this as kind of like a win-win, where you're getting your value one way or another, but you're also taking, you're taking your resources away from your opponent and you potentially using it against them. That's very, very good. Wand of Wonder does the same thing essentially. Once again, for 4, tap, roll a d20, except all 3 of your opponents do it, and then you get to choose which ones you're activating based on your roll. Again, for 1 to 9, it's 1. 10 to 19 is 2. If you roll a 20, it's 3. For 4 mana, stealing 3 instants or sorceries from your opponents, even just exiling them from their library is not that bad, right? It's just a whole lot of value there. Still don't understand why this is not worth a whole lot more money. Alright. Targeted removal. So Chaos Warp. I love Chaos Warp just because of the flexibility, right? The owner of target permanent shuffles it into the library. Target permanent, even lands, or you can go for lands, right? Then reveal the top card of the library. If it's a permanent card, put it onto the battlefield. Again, if it's a permanent, they get something else. A little risky, but if you're using this, it's probably something that's worth casting it on. Clay Golem. For 6 mana, roll a d8. It has Monstrosity 8, where X is the result, right? So for 6 mana, which is kind of steep, you can give it up to +8/+8. Once again, make sure you have your extra rolls, right? Don't only roll 1 dice when using this. You want to use multiple. 1 die, I should say. But anyway. When Clay Golem becomes monstrous, destroy target permanent. Just destroy target permanent, not non-land permanent. Just any permanent you want, gone, just for giving this a bonus. Really, really great synergy, and also has the roll on it as well. So it just does like everything you want. Finally, Vandal Blast. It does only destroy artifacts, but you can overload it to target all of the artifacts, right? Artifacts aren't super important to you. They're going to matter a lot more to your opponents and a lot more to some decks, right? If they've got like an Artifact Matters deck, like a Saheeli or something, this is a nightmare card to see. I have a Saheeli deck. Thankfully, no one's played Vandal Blast yet, but I did knock on wood just to make sure, Token Creature Swarm. Okay, Feywild Trickster. Again, making the 1/1 dragons or Tarlin Sky Summoner. Every time you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 2/2 blue drake. So you can make drakes with flying. This is all about making flying tokens. Again, they've got the evasion, and you can boost them in all kinds of ways. Also, we've got Cone of Cold right here. If you cast that, tap all creatures your opponents control. Or, if you roll higher than 10, tap them and they stay tapped, right? They don't untap during the next untap phase. 55% chance they are not able to untap. This is very close to a win con right here. It's a possible win con, yeah. Especially we talked about with, what was the spell called? Where you're exiling it from your graveyard and then giving all your creatures bonus damage. Using that to finish off somebody, not that difficult. Draw card damage feedback. Alright, so remember, we got Robe with the Archmagi and Wizard class. If you've got Wizard class leveled up to level 3, Robe with the Archmagi, whenever you deal damage, draw that many cards. Then because you drew that many cards, you put that many +1/+1 counters on the whatever you want. Probably your commander. So if your commander is whatever damage it may be, including bonuses from like equipment and things like that, you can just get to like pile the +1/+1 counters on your commander. Getting to commander damage is very easy then, right? This is a synergy to keep in mind is the main thing. Really remember to make full use of that Wizard class level 3. Double ETBs, alright? There's a lot of things that let you roll on ETBs in this deck. Make sure you get the most out of them. So we got Sword Coast Serpent. There's actually many things that will bounce things back to the hand, or your opponent's hand, or your hand. But yeah, return target creature to its owner's hand for 1 and a blue. And then you can cast it later as the actual creature, which is a great combination. But anyway, yeah, you want to get the extra ETB, you could just cast it again. Or use this offensively, right? Take your opponent's stuff off the board and then just go in and hit him. And Panharmonicon, if an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability to control, it triggers an additional time. Right? You're getting double triggers. Your ETBs are triggered abilities, and a whole bunch of other things that, like your Wizard class +1/+1 counters, that'll go off twice. So you can get commander damage in like 1 turn, right? Robe with the Archmagi, +1/+1 counters, and then do it again. Just nuts. Anyway, and Displace, exile up to 2 target creatures you control, then return them to the battlefield under the owner's control. You probably want to use this defensively, not just for the ETB, but yeah, save your commander and another creature and put them back down. If there's a board wipe, you have a way to like take full advantage of that. Stealing spells. Okay, we already talked about Wand of Wonder and Chaos Wand. We got one more here, and it also lets you roll. So you got the roll synergy with the stealing spell synergy. Or all the casting synergy, I should say. Exile target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard, roll a d20, activate only as a sorcery. Okay, this is 7 mana to cast it, which is steep, but there's no activation cost for the ability. You just tap it, tap it, right? Copy that card. You may cast the copy. So again, you're getting your copy, which will trigger Stormkiln Artist, making a treasure. So if you tap this to make a copy of something, you're making a treasure as well. Oh boy. Anyway, on a 10 to 19 copy that card, you may cast the copy by paying 1 rather than its mana cost. So you can cast any spell that's exiled with it. Again, you're going to basically make a big pile of things that you've exiled with it. Hopefully make a big pile of things you exiled with it. And yeah, just be able to even cast it for only 1. And then on 20, you exile each or copy each exiled card. Copy each card exiled with Wizard Spellbook. You may cast any number of the copies without paying the mana cost. So you could potentially just cast a whole pile of things, and if Stormkiln Artist is out, you're making a pile of treasure for stealing their things from the graveyard and getting the value out of it. You're getting extra value. Keep in mind, this will give you access to a lot of things that you're not able to do. Things like mana ramp. If they've cast, say 3 visits or something, you can exile that from the graveyard and just start ramping with that, right? So that will add up very, very quickly. Anywho, this has been Farideh, Farideh Devil's Chosen, not the. Keep rolling. I hope you guys like this one. I really enjoyed making this. I was originally not trying to make it this cheap, and then I got kind of the basic, all the base cards set up, and then I was like, oh wow. I'm at like 20 bucks right now. So I went and added a whole bunch extra, and yeah, still managed to keep it under 35, which I've never done before. So pretty exciting. Anyway, take it easy.